These are stunning opening traps of London system, and you can crush your opponent very easily with these traps. You would have seen these lines countless number of times when we just play the bishop out and e3 is coming. So we have knight f6, e3, and now c5. This is the standard move. We just want to challenge the center. There are many moves possible. You can play the knight move, you can play this knight, or the most popular, you can play c3. We just make the triangular like structure, and this is pretty standard. We have e6, and now this knight is coming into the game. Knight comes out, and we also develop our knight to d2 because we don't have the knight jumping on c3 square. So bishop comes out. These are the standard moves. We just challenge the bishop, so bishop goes back, and we just castle with black. So there are two moves possible. Magnus also played these openings a million times, where he played the bishop move, which is quite famous move. I will show you once you get the theory. So the main idea, we want to play the bishop to d3. So bishop d3, and now the queen is getting developed. So once this queen comes into the game, you have a very standard stuff, and you can play the knight in the center. And for the beginners, you should never capture with the knight because you allow this fork to happen, and black can easily lose the game in this fashion. So that's not happening. Everyone knows this trap. So knight back is one of the standard idea, and other moves are also possible. You could play this queen to c7, and we just challenge this knight a lot, and then we can just push f4, and we have castle. We have still a very good game. So this is also possible, but knight move is also good, and we just challenge this knight. Okay, now we have to go for the trade. So we just capture here, bishop capture, and now we go for the series of exchanges. Queen captures. Up to here everything is good. After this pawn captures, this attacks the queen, and the best move for black is to just play the queen back and don't capture this pawn. Okay, if you really capture this, that is the trap, and it starts from this brilliant bishop sacrifice. I think you would have understood this line because everyone knows about this trap. So after this king capture, queen check, and you have to find a very specific idea. You can pause the video to try, and I congratulate you all who spotted this brilliant idea. And now we play the knight move, attacks the queen. So it is not possible. We cannot capture this because okay, this queen would be hanging, and that's it. So this game has also been raised against the grandmaster. Grandmaster is playing with the black pieces, and maybe he would be knowing about this trap, but he still played this line, and who knows, maybe he would not be knowing this trap. So queen goes back, and this is the worst move in this position, and the grandmaster also played this move. So okay, now you can play the knight move. We are threatening checkmate, so checkmate is never going to stop unless you give up the queen. Okay, if we just try to move the rook, let's say here, we just deliver check, and this would be just a checkmate. So obviously this is not possible, and the grandmaster played the queen capture, and the game ended in a draw. The grandmaster was having the rating 2900 on leeches, and the opponent was having 2700 rating. I couldn't believe that how 2700 rated player blundered the threefold repetition. There was a threefold repetition after when two rooks was delivering checks from here. So that was the game. Obviously miracle doesn't happen every time, and you know this is the complete winning game for white if you don't blunder really. So that is why this move is losing. Queen should never go back, and there are two possible moves. You could play the pawn push, which looks appealing. Okay, we just attack the queen, but now we just grab the queen. So we have pawn capture, and this knight comes with a threat on the rook, and also once the rook move, we have a very standard check, and we can pick up the free pawn. So we would be completely up 2 pawns, and that would be easily winning game if you don't blunder. So that is one possibility. You could also try this queen back, also suggested by the engine. You can now play the knight move. We just go for check. So let's say the rook moves, we can first deliver this check, and once the queen goes back, we can deliver another check, and once queen goes here, king goes here, we can again deliver check, come back, and then you castle here, and that would be a really good game. Okay, we can again deliver check, we just come to this square, we are threatening checkmate, so king should move, and now this pawn is hanging, so we just want to castle, and that's the game. Because there is no good moves in this position for black, and you really black is really suffering a lot. After this pawn push is coming, maybe the rook lift can take place, and we can just pressurize the center, and this would be easy win. But black should never try and play this rook here, because this would be a pretty easy checkmate, because we already know rook is not coming in an open file. So this knight is pretty the standard knight, and you can easily win this game from here. So let me show you the other trap. What happens if the queen is not coming on e7 and he's playing the pawn push? This is also a well-known trap, and we finally push the pawn in the center. So once you push the pawn in the center, we are just threatening this pawn push to trap one of the piece. So most obvious move is this capture. Now we pressurize the bishop, pressurize the knight, so we need to take, and now bishop is slicing this diagonal, attacking this knight, so we want to play the bishop move. And there is a very famous trap again. After this pawn capture, bishop is under attack, so we want to capture, and now the queen is coming and pressurizes this knight. And okay, the best move, we already know that rook is coming here, this is the best move, but then we have the rook attacks the queen, and queen will have to move, and then black will have to deal with this pawn push because this bishop is getting trapped. But this is obviously not trapped. Let me show you. After this, we can play the rook move. So once the queen move, we can just push the pawn, attacks the bishop. So but black needs to find this pawn push, attack the bishop, because bishop cannot go back, and we just capture this. So after this, the game is very tricky. We need to play the bishop to d3, and don't allow the rook to penetrate this file, because if you really play this, then there would be a cunning idea from black side, sacrificing the knight. And okay, this is slightly equal, but for one sacrifice, when your king is stuck in the center, maybe this would be slightly good for black, but you can still fight back. And this is the position, because if we don't play the knight capture, obviously this bishop is gone, and you can also win the game for white from here. So that is the game. But the real trap starts when we play the queen move and the rook is not coming into the game. Because of the rook move, black can also spot this queen maneuver, because just moving the queen out of the way. But now you have again the same sacrifice bishop move, and once the king capture, queen delivers a check. So why this move is not possible when the queen is already here and the rook is already here? Because queen will just take the queen. So that is the difference between this position and the earlier. So king should just go back, and now we play the knight move. Again we are threatening checkmate, so we need to move the rook. This is the only move, and once we move the rook, we deliver a check. So king move, we deliver another check, and once the king move, we capture this pawn, we go for this pawn, and this pawn cannot be saved unless black plays this passive looking move. And now we play just the castling, and the advantage here is 4 plus or 3 plus, it is also there. So 3 plus advantage is really good, and the bishop is coming here. Maybe you can just play the knight move, challenge this rook. That would be completely winning, because we don't have a good square for the black queen. Queen cannot go anywhere, this rook cannot go anywhere, this rook cannot move, and this would be very annoying to play this game, obviously. And you could also go for this knight sacrifice, because queen capture is not possible, because we have the rook coming into the game and pinning. So all the moves are possible, and you can easily win this game from here. But now let me show you a game of Magnus, where Magnus crushed his opponent very easily. After this, okay, Magnus is not playing the bishop move after this. So after black just castles like this, Magnus played this bishop b5, attacks the knight. So knight goes back, and once the knight goes back, Magnus was having 200 ahead rating against the grandmaster who was playing with black. So you can see Magnus is super grandmaster and he can easily crush his opponent. So let's bishop goes back, and we lost a tempo, but also the knight is not doing that much, so that is really good. And now black found this pawn push. Okay, continuing the same fashion, this bishop is coming here, but again the same theory would work. And if you would have noticed in the last variation I showed you this pawn push, again this pawn push is really working, because in the next move we were threatening this. So black needed to capture this. Again knight captures, pressurizes both the knights, so we need to take this knight, and after this bishop takes, attacks the rook. Rook moved, and now you need to spot this pawn capture. So bishop is under attack. Now the bishop captures here, and once bishop captures, pawn captures, and that is really a good move, because now we open up the rook file and we just challenge this. So the best move for black should be first exchange the queen, and the rook is controlling the d file then, and this would be good for white and slightly better for white. That is why black is saying, okay, I want you to capture this queen so that the rook will come into the game. And black played the pawn push, and this is the blunder of this game. And you can pause the video to try. I congratulate you all who spotted this crazy line, and this can be only spotted by the grandmasters, obviously, like the Magnus. So Magnus just took this rook capture, and now not moving the bishop, but surprisingly the pawn push. And the pawn push is coming. If we really want to take this, this will not work because pawn push, and we win the exchange because queen is getting promoted, so we need to play the bishop move. And once we take this, promote the queen, and once this knight jump, we are attacking here, we are attacking here. This would also be attacked after this bishop moves. So this is completely winning because we are already the exchange up, having the two rooks, and knight is also winning one of the pawn. Completely winning, 4+ advantage is there for white. That is why grandmaster playing with black did not dare to just capture this bishop and plays the knight move in the center. So he wants to meet with this pawn push with the knight capturing the pawn. But surprisingly, you need to be like Magnus to win this game. First the bishop capture. Okay, pawn capture is not possible because we have again the fork. So rook capture, and it looks like black managed to save the game. But now we find the rook move. We just want to see that the back rank we have a check. So there would be many ideas of this check also, and pinning this bishop along this file, along this 8th rank, so that would be quite annoying. So that is why black need to take this, and after this bishop is coming into the game. And again, like Magnus, you need to find one another crazy move with this knight. Just saves the pawn. We just want to give the strength to this pawn, so this is never falling. After this rook comes to attack this pawn, we need to spot another move with this pawn push. If we play any other move, this is not winning, because if we play any move, let's say bishop will just come here to just challenge the pawn, and the pawn is completely lost. So if we lose the pawn, this is our strength, and this will win the game. So that is why Magnus pushes the pawn and don't allow the bishop to just attack this pawn. So black played this pawn push, challenges this, but again the surprising stuff is this pawn push. And now Magnus invites this pawn to capture, but again a4 pawn push. So bishop move is still not possible, and now we are threatening this. So black played the rook move. Okay, rook is now coming here, but obviously this will not work, and completely winning game, because once the king move, this was check, and rook is coming to this square, attack the knight. But Magnus played the pawn push, and guess what? Black just resigned the game on this position, because any move you play, you need to go back with the bishop. Then we just push the pawn, or there are no good moves because knight is also capturing this, other rook trade is also coming, and this would be easy win for Magnus. So that is why at this position Magnus just won the game pretty easily. Let me show you the other trap. After this, you could also try a very wonderful move without pushing this pawn or without pushing this pawn. You could also try this knight move, and this knight move comes as a surprise because we invite this bishop to pin the knight, and once the knight is pinned you need to spot the knight d2, and we have e6. Okay, continue development. We have the pawn push. Okay, now the queen would be coming in the game, so we have the knight move, and now we play the surprising stuff, queen, and the knight is already jumping here to just challenge the knight, but obviously we all know bishop is coming here. But now this is a blunder, and you can surprisingly play a very wonderful move with this bishop attacks the pawn. And okay, this is not possible because if we just capture this, there would be this check, and we just pick up this bishop also. That would be quite annoying and completely winning. So what engine recommends here, you need to go for the queen trade, but obviously this will also not help. Knight capture the queen, then we grab the free bishop. After this pawn capture, we also win this pawn, and now you would see these two pawns are a really doubled pawn, and this would be quite easily winning if we don't blunder till the end, because these two pawns will definitely fall, and we can have a really good game with 2 plus advantage, 3 plus advantage in this position. So that is why queen move is obviously not that much good, but still one can try this castling. But the castling will also not work because now we just capture this, attack this, attack this. So once this moves, we can even capture this, and we are already up a piece, so that would be completely winning. After this capture, we can capture this. Or you could also see straight away this bishop capture, but we don't have to recapture the bishop. Then we just capture the pawn, attack the rook, and once any move is played, because we are threatening to capture this, so black wants to save this, but this will not help. Once we deliver a check with the queen, and or the bishop is also good, and we just pick up the rook, so that would be easily winning for white. Now let me go to the starting position. Again, at this place there is also another trap, which is quite surprising. So we don't have to play c3 this time again with this knight move. Okay, let's say the pawn push, then we just play the knight move, and when this knight jumps here, this looks like a natural looking move, but this is completely lost. And why this is lost? This is just like the Italian, if you really want to know the trap. Once the 2 knight is out and the pawn is already on c5, and you have the bishop on this f4 and this knight here, and this knight, you have also developed the other knight, then you have this knight move goes for this square, and surprisingly there is no good move. Okay, this queen check will not help because we just push the pawn, and again the knight check is obviously there, so we need to move the king. Okay, if you move the king, we have the bishop check and we would be winning. So that's the game, completely winning for white. So one can try this pawn push also. Once you push the pawn, we just take with the knight, and now what is the threat? Okay, if we just capture with the knight, bishop capture, again the threat remains the same. This knight will deliver a check, pick up the rook, so that would be quite annoying. So we don't want to capture, and we want to move the knight back. And once the knight goes back, like this is the engine recommendation, we have the knight back also, sacrifices the knight. And once this pawn accepts this, we have this knight check, forking this and forking this. So king needs to move, and we actually don't need to capture this rook straight away. We can just capture with the pawn, offer the queen trade. So once the queen trade is accepted, we just play the rook capture, and in the next move this is coming, and this would be quite easy win for us. Okay, let's play the knight move. We just play the knight capturing this, and okay, this knight capture is not possible again because we would be having this bishop check, winning this back, and this is an easy win for white. So how was the video? If you really want to learn from me, my rating is more than 2200 on leeches, like 2240 on leeches. You can also see on my screen. And part 2 of this London system would be available for the subscribers, or after 2 or 3 days this would be available for the members of this page. So you want to just subscribe my page. This will also help me create more amazing videos for you. Or you can also support me by giving some stars, which is the new feature of this Facebook application. So I will see you soon in my next video, and I will be waiting for your comment. So see you soon.